She never likes to choose. She got wonderful eyes and a risky mouth. And when I asked her before, she says she's holding it out.
Let's jump into this. Let's Go, the Cars, and also the book about Benjamin Orr and the Cars. And with me is Joe Milliken, who we chatted with about 3 weeks ago. How you doing, Joe?
Trevor, how are you? It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I have so many rock people that I've talked to. I guess you follow me on Facebook, and I follow you, that I've mentioned to everybody that I got you coming on. And then, like Carmine Apiece of the Fudge, who's been a regular for 17 years, wanted to give you a little salute, man, for doing that for Ben Orr.
Wow, that is really cool. I just got goosebumps hearing that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, you're on Trevor Joe Lennon's Guerrilla Radio, broadcasting live and in color around the world, 17 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico. And ever since I posted you up 3 weeks ago, I got about 20 new friends on Facebook that are friends of yours. And then a whole bunch of them on Twitter, man. They are so excited that I'm going to say this is almost bringing Ben back to life. You know that?
Wow, that's really incredible to hear. Yeah, the response has been really good. The book officially came out a couple of days ago on November 11th, which is 11/11 in honor of Benny 11 Letters, which is what Ben was called in his younger days in Cleveland.
Yeah. You know what? He grew up in the suburb of Parma Heights. And one of my friends is the Ghoul, who did scary shows on Saturday nights, who was from Parma.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, man, I know all about him. Ben was a big fan.
Oh, man, see how we connect?
Absolutely. Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's a little story about Ben. I interviewed one of Elektra Records promo guys who took care of the Cleveland area, and one time Ben was in town with the band, and him and this promo guy went to some TV station or something to get T-shirts that were made from that guy. So Ben was a big fan, so it's funny you mentioned that.
No, when I saw Parma, because the Ghoul always mentioned that, and my Motown people are going absolutely bananas because the Ghoul was on Channel 50, I think, out of Motown Saturday nights, and he plays stuff off the White Album by the Beatles. And he was a nutty guy. He played polkas, too. So
really cool. So yeah, it's quite ironic that I even had a little story about that and connecting it to Ben. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame being in Cleveland, that's not by anybody. That's not a mistake either. You know, that's a great place to have it. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right there. Tell us about first I need to get a little bit about your background as a music journalist. What steered you in that direction?
Well, I've been a published writer for about 20 years, and I've been a rock and roll fan since I was 13 years old. And in my formative years, and as I was getting ready to go to college, I was an artist. And I got to college as an art student and quickly found out that everybody around me was better than me, and I probably wasn't going to make it in that field. So my creative outlet became writing. And also, even though I'm a huge music fan, I'm not musically inclined, so I couldn't carry a tune if it had a handle on it. So I combined the two. If I became a writer, I could have my artistic outlet, and I could also stay involved in music. So that's kind of how I became a music journalist.
Well, you grew up in the Boston area, and you got bands like Aerosmith, you got the Standells, you got Boston, you got the Cars. You got Freddie Boom Boom Cannon, who I had on, who actually grew up in Boston. And I remember relating a story to people. I asked him if he saw Babe Ruth pitch for the Red Sox, and he goes, "How in the hell old do you think I am?" Because that goes back to 1916.
Oh my God, yeah.
So you're in the Boston area. You're the Boston area music journalist, and I also saw something on here about sports and art and stuff. So I was going to throw Carl Yastrzemski, Rico Petrocelli in there, and also Jimmy Longborg from the '67 Bo Sox. How about that?
Well, as long as you throw in Freddie Lynn from the '75 team, because Freddie Lynn was my favorite player growing up.
Okay, we could do that too. We could go all over the map with these guys. Anyway, tell us about the early beginnings of the Cars. What was Ben doing prior to, meeting Rick and then getting Greg in the band? Greg, great guy. Greg Hawkes has done the show, and I met a couple of years ago here in Tampa. But tell us how that early years before the first album even broke.
Well, as you mentioned, Ben is from Cleveland, so he's an Ohio native, and Rick actually, although Rick is originally from the Baltimore, Maryland area, when he was young, his family moved to Ohio as well. So him and Ben were in the same area, and that's kind of how they met. They would go to shows and meet each other and see each other at parties. And then one day they ended up in a basement together with some instruments around, and Ben picked up a guitar and played a Beatles song and sang to Rick, and Rick is quoted as saying that it was the greatest voice he had ever heard. They became partners right then. They toiled around for about 10 years trying to make it as a band, and then finally Rick said, I want to go to Boston just because it's a college town and a music hotbed. So Rick went to Cleveland. Ben had stayed behind in Ohio for a while because unfortunately he had just lost his dad, so he wanted to stay in the area and help his mom get settled. And then he eventually joined Rick in Boston, and they toiled around in Boston for a couple of years too, a couple of different bands. And the last band before they turned into the Cars was called Captain Swing. And that's when they brought in Elliot, and that's when they brought in Greg, and then eventually David, and that's how they morphed into the Cars. So it was actually a culmination of a lot of years and a lot of miles trying to make it as a band. And when they finally settled down in Boston and had the final lineup of the band set, all the guys got in a group and said, we're going to do this, and our goal is to have a record deal within a year. If we don't have a record deal, we'll make our own record. And sure enough, within a year, they got a deal, and the rest, as they say, is rock and roll history.
Wow. And that's really cool. As the remaining members are out there floating around, they do some car stuff, don't they?
What was that again?
Well, the remaining members of the Cars, let's talk about Greg and Rick maybe. Do they still do some Cars salutes or tributes?
I think when Rick does solo shows, he does do some Cars stuff, and Greg has some music projects on the side, and he also tours with. He tours with Todd Rundgren right now, so I think they also mix in some Cars songs into their set. But I think the guys kind of stay in the background now. I mean, you've been in the music business for as long as they have, and now all of a sudden you're members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think they can pick and choose now what they plan to do musically. Mm-hmm. But when they do get out there, they still do perform some Cars songs and try to keep that part of it alive for sure.
It's Joe Milliken, the author of Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. It's on Roman and Littlefield, and you can get the book. You can get the book now, right?
You can. It finally officially was released a couple of days ago, but you can get it online. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target. You can also go to the Roman and Littlefield website, and you can order it there. And I've also created a website for the book. My public relations director, Donna, and I designed a website. It's really easy. It's just benorbook.com. And you can go to my website, and there's some select photos from the book, an author bio, talks a little bit about a couple of stories in the book, and there's a page there for links to interviews I've done. So you can go to my website and order it there, too.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time. We should probably talk some more a little bit later. I'll email you this interview. How about that?
I would love it. I'd love to get this clip on and post it and help promote you too. And anytime you want me on the air, I'd be more than happy to come on and chat about the cars and the late great Ben Orr with you.
Okay, and we'll talk Boston sports.
I'm always up for talking Boston sports, City of Champions, right there.
All right.